So we are amazingly excited and grateful to welcome Floor Remmelzwaal joining us this evening. So Floor joins us as an agile coach, and she helps teams improve continuous improvement practices, productivity, well-being as well. And she's coaching more than 100 people, 100 teams, sorry, so far to get better at doing a lot of these things that often teams need to improve on. Floor is an advocate of many different aspects of what we do in the industry. So systems thinking, lean, DevOps, and being able to measure how agile we are, which is amazing. I'm really excited, Floor, to hear some of your words of wisdom this evening. The title of tonight's talk, Planning Fallacy and Optimism Bias. Again, really looking forward to this. It's a topic that certainly resonates strongly with me. I've been part of a lot of this myself, so I'm really excited to hear some of your thoughts on how we can improve accuracy and why we aren't often particularly accurate. And Floor's going to take us on a journey to uncover some of the psychological and mechanical factors which underlie some of our miscalculations. So that is all from me. I'm going to hand over to Floor for tonight's talk. Over to you, Floor.
Okay, great. So yes, thank you for that introduction, and I look forward to this talk as well. And I hope you can also use it to your own advantage, and also help people talk about it. Why it's not a miracle. It's not any reason why things are too complicated, except there are reasons why we usually suck at predictions, and there's also things we can do about it. So this, I hope, will create some awareness for you all to join there. Okay. So this is a little bit about me. I'm used to doing a lot in SAFe, so that's what the SPC stands for. I think I can see myself as an enterprise agile coach right now, so helping companies, change for the better, and constantly switching between things like economics, team coaching, Scrum, but also psychology, because I think we're still human beings, and that's also a reason why I very much like to let me just find something here. Yeah, why I very much like to work with people. I think that's the bottom line. I thought when I got into this, I was working with computers, but it's actually people I'm working with, and I'm very happy that that's the case. Okay, so why are our estimates so often wrong? I'm sure you guys must have some ideas about why our estimates are so often wrong, or suck, or are not good. I suppose most of you are in the software industry. So why don't you join the menti.com code at the top? I believe Mohammed has shared it in the chat. And then you can send a response for a reason why you think we are not great at planning, whether it's agile or something else. So I'm happy to see a response here and there. So I don't know if anybody's typing anything already, or were you expecting me to give all the answers?
Well, I'll put a link in as well, Matt, to it.
Yeah. Or Mohammed, maybe you can type in a response to see if it's actually working.
Yeah, no, it is working.
Okay, good. Let's see why I'm not seeing the... There we go. Okay, not having all the information variables beforehand. Yep, I can recognize that. People have certain expectations. Estimates are aligned to what these are perceived to be. We don't understand the work. Or simply because estimation is difficult. Very sure. Biases. Clever. Somebody has read the title to this presentation very well. Yep. And we're poor at estimates, novel work, unknowns. Yes, processes are not optimized according to business needs. A great amount of answers, great amount of answers. If you're still typing up, I'll get back to it in a bit. So what actually is this has been going on since the day software was born, is that software projects have always been going wrong. I remember I have a book about you writing user stories or use cases, and the top 10 problems are still always there. Unclear requirements, so a very good one there. Lack of user involvement, not having the end user there. Who are we building it for? Environment variability, not having fixed teams. Failure to address scope creep, a user that keeps on adding, or a business keeps on adding stuff. These are real issues, and they're still happening even in agile methods. And I wouldn't be giving this talk if it wasn't still happening. Lack of experience with agile methods. Just like, yeah, just go ahead and do agile, and then it'll be like a silver bullet and everything will be fixed. No, it doesn't work that way. Company culture at odds with agile values. What happens if teams say, hey, this is the progress, you're not going to be happy about it, but it is realistic? It may not be effective. Inadequate risk management. So how do we deal with risks? Huh? Do we all sorts of kinds, lack of management support, this one has been all over the place as well. But sometimes, project teams can be isolated. Now I'm using project and agile and teams and things like that and interchangeably, but basically I mean everything that is used to design new software or configuration of business software, which usually takes multiple years. And indeed, also technical challenges. And a really good one that somebody added is that we're poor at planning. And I wish we would actually recognize this fact that planning is difficult and we need to get better at it. So I'm going to ask you for some participation. Wishful thinking, very good. The estimation perceived as something that should be very accurate, also very good point. So now I'd like to ask you, can you provide an example of something that always takes longer than you think? It can be a real life example. It can be something that happened to you today or yesterday. Just to indeed see going shopping. Yeah, seeing that going shopping, I can imagine, you see an advert for something that you don't need, but you look at it and you go into the stop anyway. Driving my daughter to school, traffic jams, terribly unpredictable. Yep, good examples. Maybe maybe one more answer from somebody. If not, I will continue. We'll get back to it in a bit. Building user interfaces. Here we go. Packing to go on holiday. Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? How many times haven't you gone on holiday and still it takes long? Yeah. So even in daily life, we're encountering a number of difficulties in our planning. So now it should, yes. I'm not understanding why it doesn't switch to the next screen. So, right, we've been talking about it. However, how come it happens that when we're in a traffic jam, sometimes it should take shorter? Why isn't the route to work or to school sometimes 50% shorter? Or when you pack for a holiday, shouldn't it sometimes, be quicker? And even software estimations, we're always like, yeah, maybe this could go wrong, but we could be good at this part and we could perhaps not be so great on the other part. But so statistically, it should be 50-50, right? There's definitely something wrong with my. So this is a great little law that you might help you to plan better in future. This is Hofstadter's law. It comes from this book Gödel, Escher, and Bach. And I admit I haven't read it, but someday I will. It always takes longer than you expect, even when you take into account Hofstadter's law. Right? So if you've been a project manager, perhaps like I have, you'd always make Slack, right? You put in Slack somewhere, and then you end up putting Slack into Slack, and in the end, you'd have so much Slack it wouldn't make sense anymore. Okay, so we're gonna do another little exercise. I'm not happy about this. Where we are going to, I'm going to ask you a question about driving a car, or maybe you don't drive a car. Driving a car, there's notorious information stuff going on about driving a car. Now this is a little bit different, so this is you can choose one of the answers that are there. Do you think you can drive a car better than most UK motorists? I'm assuming you live in the UK, but if not, then you can choose a different your own country. So I know you guys are probably quite smart here, so you're understanding a bit about statistics. But we'll just see how you do compared to Sweden or compared to the US when they did these questionnaires with them as well. And we all know, I personally I drive a Volvo, so I can really drive real bad because my Volvo will save me from everything, right? So yeah. Okay. I think we got a whole bunch of responses. So I did change this one at the last moment, but so what do you think this optimism bias is about? Because it's called the better than average effect. So in the US, 93% of participants thought themselves better than above average drivers. So that's kind of impossible, right? In Sweden, they were more modest, and 70% rated themselves better as above average drivers. So obviously, that's just not possible. So people just think they're better than average at tasks than driving because you don't simply remember when you've had near misses, for example, or other problems. We all think we are better drivers, and the other guys usually suck. So that's basically what we think. So I'm very proud of you guys that you filled it in like this. I did wonder how you would fill it in if I'd left out the middle one, but still we're quite optimistic. There should at least be 3 people who did it. I'm not a confident driver, and nobody did. So you see, as a group, we're also overly optimistic. But of course, you're in IT, so we understand the basics of this sort of stuff. Okay, on to the next one. How we're doing time-wise? Then we're doing good. So another small example. So you already asked me, told me how long it takes you to do tasks, but now we're gonna zoom in and be a little bit more specific and keep it really simple. In your living room, and I'm assuming it's a bit of an average living room, and with an average amount of kids, or maybe no kids, that's okay. How much time did it take you to clean it up, to unclutter it, and sorry, I'm switching this constantly. And how long did it take the last time you tidied up your living room? And let's say I hope you didn't take much more than 4 hours to do that. And I'm hoping there wasn't a giant spill of a gallon of milk or anything super out of the ordinary. But do you remember how long it took? So it's really more about trying to remember how long it took. So the scale here is 30 minutes is on your left, and then 4 hours or more is way on the end. And you can give 10 points being maximum of 4 hours, and I think 1 point or 0 points will be on your left and will equal 30 minutes. So we're seeing some dips. Seems like you guys rush through your living room quite often and making it really speedy. So I hope you can come and clean my living room for me next time, because I don't like doing it either. And I do it about 30 minutes and then it's not done yet and then I stop. Okay, so I'm curious to think. So remember by yourself to see if you can come back to this question later, yeah? So if we go to there's something really strange going on with my PowerPoint. Here we go. There's like 2 PowerPoints going on at the same time. Anyway, so another example, tax compliance. So everybody hates filling in taxes, right? But anyway, research in 1997 of Canadian taxpayers, they asked them, guys, how long did it take you to fill it in? And they've done this for years. Every year they had to send it by mail, and all of them managed to fill it in a week later than they predicted. So even when taking into account Hofstadter's law, it still took longer than they wanted it to. This illustrates planning fallacy. So here we're getting to the bottom of this now. Yeah. There's a really strange thing with this PowerPoint going on, but anyway. So optimism bias causes underestimation. We are pretty darn happy people. Taxes are not fun. So what we just do is we just hope we get around to it and finish it much quicker than we actually do. And we also believe that we're just less likely to face delays than the other time. Just as when you're getting into the car to go to work or drive your daughter to school, you just hope and believe that you're going to not have such an awful delay. It's just natural. We ignore past experience. Despite knowing that past tasks took longer than planned, we often ignore this data. We'll just say, oh yeah, but that one time it was a Tuesday morning and it was raining and the weather was awful and they had this big truck in front of me and it broke down, so that's really not average, etc., etc. Now just remember thinking about this, how often this stuff happens in work. Then what's also very interesting, and this was a big eye-opener, we self versus others predictions. We tend to underestimate only our own tasks. So it's only for our own tasks, believing we can complete them faster while we overestimate the time needed for others' tasks. So how quickly do you do your living room decluttering? And how long does, let's say, your spouse or your significant other take? You'll actually probably think, oh, he or she takes forever to do it. And your spouse will probably tell you that you take forever to do it. So this is like a pessimist bias. And I guess the pessimist bias, it's not realistic, but it's perhaps counteraction. So in general, we're just overly more optimistic than the actual time required for similar past projects. So we don't take properly into account previous projects that we did. So we always say, yes, but that one time we did a similar project, yeah, but we had all this stuff going on. Yeah, what was it? This one boss, yeah, he came in and disturbed us often. So no, there was no comparison actually possible with that ERP project. No, it's completely different. We will do much better this time. So we're not so good in comparing either when we have data. Okay, so I built in a little thing about digestion time so far. I just there's some there's quite a bit of theory, but if everybody's okay to move on, then I'll be happy to move on, or we can take some questions right now. That's okay too.
Got no questions in the chat at the moment, Flo.
Yeah, maybe you're having a little think about it. But feel free to add a question in chat, or if you don't understand something properly. It took me a while to digest all this information as well. So I'll just bring up the next slide quickly, and if a question pops in your head, feel free to post it. All right, so we have more biases. There's a self-serving bias. And, if you do a little bit of soul searching, then, you might have fallen prey to this one yourself. Taking credit for past performance yourself and discounting delays on outside influences. So when you ask a project team, for example, can you make a new estimate? They might inherently be too optimistic because they'll say delays were because we were working with some third party, and they delivered poor developers, so that's the reason why we were delayed, but it was not because of us. It's only natural to put yourself in a better daylight, right? Wishful thinking, and somebody named this earlier in the chat, so that's really good. Wishful thinking is an optimism bias. We just simply think tasks can be done easily and quickly because that's what we want it to be the case. But wishing for it doesn't make it so. Yeah, so those tax returns, yeah, just take the time they have to. Also, we incorrectly remember tasks in the past. We simply forget stuff. Our memory of the past itself is biased. I often can't remember how long things took, especially traveling, for example, or taking a bus ride somewhere. You forget how awful it was to take the chicken bus in Mozambique, but I think it would have been taking 10 hours and not 6. We romanticize the past. The 1990 rule, perhaps some of you know this one. Added it in. It's not actually from all the scientific research, but it's a really good one. It's very true. The first 90% of the code accounts for the first 90% of the development time. The remaining 10% of the code accounts for the other 90% of the development time. Which means that you should avoid doing 100% of the code or the functionality that's expected, because the last 10% will take a grueling amount of time. It's like the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, for example, except this one is sort of jokingly enhanced to the 1990 rule. But just think back, if you've worked in software a long time, how often this is true and you wished you'd actually stopped at 90% of the code and not gone on. Okay, so once you start with biases, there's so many of them, it's just great. So another one is deadline bias. This must be recognized, at least to me it was, when especially studying or preparing for this presentation for that matter. Distant deadlines make people more optimistic in its planning. Oh, it's only in a month. I'll have plenty of time to do it. Yeah, no problem. I can have several evenings to work on it, etc. So very recognizable. Sometimes also called the student's principle, I believe. So that you work harder as you approach a deadline. This one is also from software industry. Adding new personnel to an already late project makes it even later. I don't think there's much scientific proof for that, but I certainly recognize it from my own practice. This is never going to work because these people need to always, get understand the project, read the documentation, get used to all the stuff. It's going to make it even later. It's also because our work is simply too complex. It's not like, I don't know, adding more people to pluck grapes. You'll be running into each other. Okay, now this one is really cool because this is why people still do software projects instead of agile, I think. The authorization imperative. So people plan projects as if they're realistic. If you plan a project that's realistic, it will take like 3 or 4 years. And then your executive will say, oh my God, that's going to take far too long. I'm not going to start the project. I'm not going to do it. Just make it fit into 1 year, right? So these clever project planners and these guys, they walk around these big project program management. They always walk around like, they can plan everything, but they deliberately plan unrealistic projects because otherwise they'll never get started. So yeah, this one you might make you go all cynical and stuff. But anyway, I mean, it sort of makes sense in a way, in a weird way. Strategic misrepresentation. It's easier to get forgiveness for overruns than permission to commence the realistically too large project. It's a fact, isn't it? We all know this one happens too. And I think this is why sometimes, agile projects just never happen. Or don't get started or people have bad press about it. Okay, so actually only 20% are positive. This has been researched. So if you think you can get as many positive effects to counteract all the risks you might foresee in your project, you're going to be wrong because only 1 in 5 of your miscalculations will be on the positive side. Now, I would like to ask you a question if you think what you think is the case for this. So let me move to my next slide. So yeah, I remember I switched this one around. So I already gave you a little bit of explanation. So take a minute to think of a real world example in any of the following. And the way this works is you can point your mouse to an area on, so let's say arising from natural asymmetry, scaling issues, or the malevolent hiding hand. That sounds like a science fiction novel. Or underestimation of risks and overestimation of capabilities. Can you think of something, a real world example where you have encountered one of these 4 issues? So that you had a project overrun, and why did it happen? It may have been because random events, there we have our first response, that's really good. Random events give unbalanced negative results of delays or costs. The negative effects tend to outweigh positive ones, as losses often carry greater consequence than equivalent gains. And so if you lose 1 week, it means it also costs 1 week. It means that problems arise exponentially, while when you gain 1 week, you will probably fill it up with something else. Scaling issues, consequences of disruptions are simply not linear. As size and effort increase in a huge project, the error increases much more of a natural effect of inefficiency of larger efforts' ability to react. So the fact that it takes 1 month to report on a project's slack in progress means that these bad effects going will take a month to correct, already going on the wrong course for a whole month before they're corrected. So the malevolent hiding hand is popular, and the underestimation of risks as well. Would someone care to let me just explain malevolent hiding hand? There's also a benevolent hiding hand, but that's the 20% that occurs positively. So the malevolent hiding hand is there much more often. It's just basically a crisis or a big cataclysmic event which will occur. It's not usually the creativity of a great bunch of people at all. So the second one is the last one is underestimation of risks and overestimation of capabilities. So here we have this benevolent hiding hand. Just believing that you could do it and you have the greatest team on earth to run the software project and the best third party system integrator just always points to systematic underestimation of risks and an overestimation of our ability to overcome unforeseen challenges. We just all think we're running around in capes. And this means that we don't prepare well enough. If we hire the best, we think, okay, we don't need to prepare, right? And we don't have perhaps enough slack in resource allocation, which sort of doubles up on itself and becomes an exponential likelihood of project failure. Okay, is there any question or somebody that would like to add to their to explain what they have, what they said? Yeah, if not, then we can just go on. You'd almost wonder how we can still be in this business, huh? Isn't it a bit of a miracle? So what now? I mean, should we just all stop planning altogether? Let's just give up and go home, or ask ChatGPT to do it for us. What would be really good, is just to also create awareness of all the stuff going on to begin with. But what I would like to, but you guys are a very resourceful bunch. I've seen that already. So I was wondering, perhaps you do have some things that you can think of to fix these things. So I've summarized in this slide all the different biases we sort of came up with. So I was wondering, yeah, maybe you have some great ideas on how to fix this. So I have the free version of Mentimeter, so they wouldn't allow me to stick it in properly. But I don't know if we have optimism bias, ignoring past experience, self versus others predictions, the self-serving bias, wishful thinking, the 90-90 rule, the deadline bias, new personnel to a late project, authorization imperative, and strategic misrepresentation are a bunch of them. So I was wondering if you can think of anything how to fix this stuff. And come on, don't let me down. There we go. Start tracking data on delivery to help remove the biases. Good one. Yeah, so collect data you are having, so to not have faulty memory play down. Reflect on past experience at the time you estimate. Yeah, that's also a good one. Any more? Okay. Well, and there we go. Backward planning. Interesting. Sort of a reverse engineering planning. Could be good. Okay. Well, I'll help you out a little bit. A couple of things really work.
Well, we've got quite a few more coming in actually.
Oh,
Fleur, now.
sorry. Great. There must be a lag. Okay, good. Oh, look at that. This is all very useful. Continual replanning, continuous forecasting, break things down smaller. Good one. Maintain a project post-mortem log to see previous pattern. Ensure the data you collect includes everything, communications, meetings, total elapsed time, not just development time. Great. External reviews. Good one. Planning metrics. Yep. Run a pre-mortem. Good one. Pre-mortem, that's a good one. Yeah. Yeah, so you know things on how to mitigate these effects. Okay, there's a bunch as well, and some of them you've named. So segmentation effect is that you make things smaller. It's much easier to estimate, how long a task of 3 days is going to take and what the risks are, and it probably won't be 3 months. It may be 5 days, but certainly not 3 months, right? So the delay is also obviously, how do you say that? Has a relationship to the original task, which is reflected in the Fibonacci sequence. So if you have, you have the 1, the 2, the 3, the 5, and the 8, and then 13 and 20, and the gaps also become bigger. So the numbers become bigger of your stories, but the gaps do too. And this is taking into account any risks you may have. Because the bigger the task, the more risks you will have. So that's why the gaps in the Fibonacci also increase. And that's why it's good to keep those gaps and not to say, okay, it's a 15, unless you're super experienced perhaps. But that is just pure math, really, which is a very important factor. Okay, then another one is implementation intentions, concrete plans that show how, when, and where one will act. So this one is like, why are we doing this? So does this sound familiar? In Agile, we often try to focus and we have the business person telling us why we need to do something. So why are we doing this? And this needs to be repeated endlessly. Anonymizing estimations and having third-party estimations. So the third party that somebody has named, an outside, an external review, for example, is extremely useful. Also, collaborative estimations are, research to have a positive effect. Reference class forecasting, yeah, so let's collect data. So you were very good in that as well. So what did we do previously? A pre-mortem and a post-mortem are also very, very good in collecting data and understanding why things went the way they did, and so that you can do something about it. Okay, so then I was like super enthusiastic when I realized all that, and then I was like, wow, wait a minute. I knew Scrum and Agile, was good at solving standard problems, in that you encounter in big waterfall projects, like keeping it small and having the user involved and all that. But I never realized how super good it really worked. I understood, the first part, segmenting, yesterday's weather, Scrum, safe, iteration, sprint, PI events, slicing. But those implementation intentions, I was never always super convinced of having sprint goals or team objectives. I never really was it until I really did this research, I wasn't convinced it was going to work. Especially when teams would say, finish everything that's in our sprint backlog. But now I see that this really works. If you have a sprint goal, you say, this is important. We need to do this, this, and this. or let's say only this. We're happy if we finish A. Because what it actually does is it helps as a team to focus on what's most important. They don't need to stop, wait, find out their product owner and say, look, I've run into a delay. What should I do, A or B? They don't need to ask that. They know because they've set the sprint goal. Same goes for team objectives, PI objectives. And an underlying reason for this is that you don't switching focus. We all know that it takes a heck of a long time, right? You need, like, if you have 2 tasks, you need 20 minutes to actually gather your thoughts and remember what you were doing if you're switching between two. So if you have 5 tasks in a day, you basically lose an hour. So having this sprint goal, team objectives, PI objectives, user stories that are very clear in their value is extremely important for not losing time. And aside from the fact that it gives teams, a purpose, which is always good. So then we have reference class forecasting. You already named it, and it really comes from Lean as well. Inspect and adapt, postmortems, root cause analysis using Jira, your velocity charts. A lot of it's automated now, but it's extremely important to start getting the data and collecting it, figuring out if you even have data and what the reliability of it is, because that will actually help. One of the first things I always do is how long does a feature take to complete? And I think now it's like 9 months. Okay, so on average, all features take 9 months to complete. Why? There's there's almost no point in even looking at that data because it's just too long. So now we're trying to break them down and increasing it to 40-50% and getting more clarity on the reasons why things are delayed and if our data is even correct. Okay, so then the last one is super important. And sometimes I think Scrum Poker is disappearing a little bit because, people think it's tiresome or whatever, but it still really damn works. So, like, relative estimation was also named. Relative estimation instead of absolute estimation is extremely effective way of understanding complexity. So I would really recommend getting back into that. And on relative estimation, I can do another lightning talk if people are interested, because it also really works. And team estimates. So don't forget, very important. Okay, I guess I'm nearing the end of my presentation. I have a feedback slide and also in Menti. I would love to hear a little bit of feedback. How insightful did you think the content of the presentation was? Sorry for the typo there. Did you like the interactivity, or do you think it could have been better? And how was the speed of the presentation? Was it too fast or too slow? This might help me, next time have better timings or zoom in on a certain subject. And most importantly, to what extent do you think you can apply the content of your presentation in your work? Is this all this theoretical mumbo jumbo of any use to you at all? And I'm glad to see some 7s here, so that's cool. So thank you for this. Speed, pretty good. Interactivity, I'm glad you liked it. So yeah, I guess I'm happy too. Thank you for your questions and the interactivity in the beginning also. And yeah, you guys already pretty well on your way of knowing why our predictions suck and what to do to make them better. I don't know if the presentation is going to be shared, but I do have references to the articles, and you can also Google them and have excerpts found out. This is a lot more to it than this. So I guess that's it from me.
That's it. So that's it for March's Agile North Ants event. Huge thank you to Floor. I know you probably had a really hard day and you've come to join us and speak. So massive thanks for taking time out of your day.
Super.
Thank you to
My pleasure.
everybody. Great. Thanks, Paul. Hope you enjoyed it as well. Speaking. Big thank you to everyone for joining us. Again, it's time out of your day. Hopefully you've taken something away from it. Great to see the feedback. So thank you for the inputs that you've given to Floor. It massively helps when we get some good participation. So thank you for engaging in that. And a big thank you to the team as well. As I say, we've had Mohammed Meji, he's been on the call. These events don't run themselves. It takes a lot of hard work, and yeah, we can't do it without the team as well. So hopefully you'll come and join us and want to join us to put these on. That's it. So without further ado, hopefully see you in April, and until then, take care, and hopefully you can apply some of Floor's support.